Well, we're going to go to the second part of The Energies of God by Megas L. Ferrandos, Athens University professor. From the book, The Orthodox Teaching on God, Athens, 1985, Chapter 7, pages 423 through 478. He goes into saying in the second part, the theology of the first Christian centuries did not preoccupy itself particularly with the matter of the divine energies and their association to the divine hypostases instead. It conveyed in its works the relative testimonies of the Bible, more or less without suspecting that a problem existed. Compare the article Energeia by E. Fascher in Reallexikon for Antike und Christentum, Volume 5, 1962, 4 through 5. Formulated teaching on the energies of God did not exist in the theology of the ancient church. From Martin Strohm had a different opinion in his article, Lehre von der Energeia, Gottes Eine, dogmengeschichtliche Betrachtung in volume Kyrios, and that's looks like volume 8, 1968, page 63 and onward. Whenever the ancient ecclesiastic authors made use of the excerpt 1 Corinthians 1:24, and they used it frequently, they aspired to one thing only: to show that the Son is not a creation, but he in fact belongs to the divine reality. However, they never posed the question, nor did they confront the problem regarding the association between hypostases and energies in God. This problem had not as yet appeared. What had preoccupied the theologians of the first of the three first Christian centuries was mainly the divinity of the Son and his association to God the Father. The problem of an association between the divine hypostases and energies appeared particularly during the era of the major Cappadocian Fathers, who, after the divinity of the Son had been formally secured by the first Ecumenical Synod in Nice, that found themselves in the need to confront the equally huge heresy as compared to the Arian one of Eunomius, who maintained precisely this: that the Son is the work of God's energy and the Spirit is the work of the Son's energy. Like, that's the heresy of the filioque and Catholicism, the procession of how that works. And with Orthodox Christianity, there is no procession with that. So when we say no filioque, that is what Orthodox Christianity is referring to. So, where was I? So, when the problem is that it is a schematic problem, and the languages usually go against one another, and they don't usually have a very good way of saying it in Latin, where the Greek has kind of picked itself up, and the Greek makes it so that it is a lot easier to distinguish when it comes to not having the filioque. Something, for example, that it would be the Nicene Creed. But anyway, where was I? Maybe I'll start over. So whenever the ancient ecclesiastic authors made use of the excerpt 1 Corinthians 1:24, and they used it frequently, they aspired to one thing only: to show that the Son of God is not a creation, but that he in fact belongs to the divine reality. However, they never posed the question, nor did they confront the problem regarding the association between hypostases and energies of God. This problem had not as yet appeared. What had preoccupied the theologians of the 3 first Christian centuries was mainly the divinity of the Son of God and its association to God the Father. The problem of an association between the divine hypostases and energies appeared particularly during the era of the major Cappadocian Fathers, who, after the divinity of the Son had been formally secured by the first Ecumenical Synod in Nice, found themselves in the need to confront the equally huge heresy as compared to the Arian one of Eunomius. I went over that and went over it again. Who maintained precisely this, that the Son is the work of God's energy and that the Spirit is the work of the Son's energy. Gregory of Nyssa against Eunomius, AI 123, the Son is the work of the precedent essence's energy, and the Spirit is likewise another work of that work. Similarly, on page 72 and onwards, in this way, he was alienating the Son from the essence of the Father and the Spirit from the essence of the Son by accepting 3 beings just as Arius had, except that each being was supposedly of another essence. Gregory of Nyssa against Eunomius, A1 page 92, according to which Eunomius maintained the following with regard to the 3 hypostases. Instead, the essences are rent apart from each other, disintegrated into a sort of isolated nature. And on page 91, Eunomius accepted that the Son is different in nature and dissimilar to the essence of God, and thus in every way does not partake of the Father through any natural familiarity. And then he goes on to say, in view of the introduction of the term energy by the heretic Eunomius in his speculations regarding God, the major Cappadocian Fathers were forced to focus on the term energy in more depth and to determine the relationship between this divine aspect and the divine essence and the hypostasis of God. Thus, all the Cappadocian Fathers, that is, Gregory the theologian, Basil the Great, and St. John Christentum, so St. Gregory the theologian, St. Basil the Great, and St. John Chrysostom, came to refer to the energies of God as the divine attributes. But the one who preoccupied himself with the matter of the divine energies was St. Gregory of Nyssa. In his series of works against Eunomius, whom we shall mainly follow here, however, it is not a true assertion that Gregory of Nyssa was the one who introduced the teaching on the energies of God, given that the main theologian on the divine energies is in fact Basil the Great. Gregory of Nyssa merely developed this teaching of his brother more systematically. The subject of the divine energies constituted both an opportune and a central chapter during the time of the major Cappadocian theologians. And for some time thereafter, this is testified not only by the works of these theologians, but also by the texts of the great theologians who followed, whose texts were attributed predominant theological and ecclesiastical personalities so that they could claim a greater prestige. Such personalities were Dionysius the Areopagite, Athanasius the Great, Basil the Great, Justin the Martyr, etc. Check against Library of Hellenic Fathers, 411 onwards, 3611 onwards. It is in these works, which is quite possibly came from the same school, that is the subject of the divine energies is posed most vividly. So, as you can see in this middle section, or as you can hear it, I mean, you can read along with it too. it's one of those things where Gregory of Nyssa took what St. Basil the Great said about the energies and hypostatically gave him more of a sense of direction when it came to the hypostases. So with the hypostases, it gives the energies of God a purpose as to how they work and how they exist within the Trinity, with the uncreated energies from God the Father, and how they correlate and relate to both the Holy Spirit and the Son of God. So therefore, those things working in unison and conjunction, but at the same time being hypostatic of one another. So both an interdependency and an independency is crucial to systematically know that they're all in one essence with one another, but they're all separate energies and they're not from one another. So that's where the Catholics, get all kinds of not messed up, but they get it all kinds of overlapping, and obviously the language in it isn't helpful because it doesn't help that language has an overlap and it lacks the essential theological context to define the energies and essence distinction. So therefore, you have a lot of discrepancies with that, and the West really doesn't understand that. So there it is.